Hello. Wow, that's a very moving act to follow. Thank you. So the title is a bit misleading, but I really resonated with what Ian said, and that we live our lives by telling stories to ourselves, and we also transmit information by telling each other stories. And the story of why I'm here today actually started off almost exactly 10 years ago. And I was reflecting on it in preparing for this talk. And for those of you who don't know, I studied electrical engineering with Rod. And I think it's almost to the day that we finished 10 years ago. And then 5 years ago, Rod said, I'm going to this thing called TED, T-E-D. And I became an instant fan. And then last year, we met up for a dinner, and I said, Rod, I've had this idea. It's this amazing thing. You give people food vouchers. And you know, the people you see on the side of the road, they're hungry, and you don't want to give them money, but how about giving them vouchers that they can get food? And I was smitten with the idea. And I'm going to take you through some slides that I've prepared, that I've overlaid on the story. I didn't know that the story was going to unfold this way, but it really was very interesting. And the first bit that I'm going to show you is the banana trick. And the interesting thing with the banana has, hopefully this one's okay, is I don't know if anyone knows how to trisect a banana without a knife. It works out to be quite interesting. This isn't such a good banana. But if you stick your finger down the middle, it automatically trisects. And let's try that again. Okay. And whilst this may not necessarily have use to you right now, I think it forms a part of the hidden knowledge that we all have. We have things that we know, and they're the most natural things to do, but by showing this to you, you can probably show other people how to do bananas, but I don't quite know if that would be quite useful. And so what I'm going to show to you is how the broccoli project, I'm the head of broccoli, came together. And what you'll also see is I have some command of PowerPoint animations. So I'm going to be presenting what I call an idea soup. It's a whole lot of ideas that I've put together, and they really define what the broccoli project is. So the first idea, and this is kind of where it started off, just before I met Rod, or Rod told me about TED, I'd read a book called The Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid. And the basic idea is that people can be graduated into their purchasing parity, or their purchasing possibility. And there are about 4 billion people that live on less than $2 a day. The second idea, and I must say that any good PowerPoint is at least 3 triangles. So you'll see that I think I've got a bit more, but I'm on my way. And you'll notice that on Maslow, at the bottom is safety and security. Third idea was the whole Web 2, and everyone got very excited about that. And if you're part of the Web 2 community, you probably find this quite funny. Now, what I've called idea 3.5 was, being an engineer and somewhat of a nerd, there was a framework that made it all make sense, and there was the idea of social objects. And for any of you who know the guy on the left, a guy called Yuri Engstrom, and he kindly let me use his notion of social objects. And the idea with a social object is that there's an idea of a social verb. So YouTube is all about watching. eBay is buying and selling. WordPress is about publishing. Google is for searching, and you can read the rest. And at the bottom of all of this, there's a value exchange that takes place. You give your attention, and in exchange for that, advertisers can talk to you, and you get a service. You can watch YouTube for free, you can use Google for free, but you're exchanging something. You're giving your permission and an asset that you own. And then some more triangles. I had this insight that Web 2 had been created for the majority of the people at the top of the pyramid. And in a sort of brilliance, I put together an idea where, how about giving a rewards program for the poor? And the idea was, at the time I was working with one of the mobile networks, and I said, how about rewarding people for buying things that they buy anyway? So like bread, like Millie Meal, and rewarding them with airtime. So something that they could really use, but they weren't too keen on the idea. And what I found out as I got more into loyalty programs is that they really focus around giving you more things that you don't need. So toasters or frequent flyer miles that you have no possibility of ever redeeming. And so the way it looks is that I sort of took these ideas of Prahalad, social objects, the rewards programs, and Web 2, blended them up together and created the whoopsie. Now you'll notice I took the vowels out because all Web 2 services seem to take the vowels out. And the original idea was to call it that, but the Broccoli project sounded a whole lot better. And then the final part came to me is that the aid industry tends to be a one-way industry. And generally it's, here's aid money, but buy our tanks. Or here's aid money and buy our products. But there's an even more interesting problem, is that, and this is what the loaf is for, it's a $100 billion industry, but 80% goes missing. So if we were going to give this loaf to people, three by three slices would get through to the end people. So one of the numbers that's been bandied around is that about $1 trillion has been poured into Africa over the last 50 years. And Africa, as I think we can see, is no better than it was 50 years ago. And one of the saddest pieces of information that I found, that more than 5 times the amount of aid will be spent on weapons this year. So what happens to the other 80%? My idea is Land Cruiser says, thanks for your donation. You'll notice that every time you see a UN driving around, they've got the new Land Cruiser. And so what the Broccoli project is giving people rewards that matter. Things like food, things like shelter, things like clothing, for positive social behavior. And I'll show you one of our first pilot projects that we did with the Desmond Tutu Foundation. Now, we've got a lot of flack for creating incentive programs and are we trying to control people's behavior? And the reality is that to an extent we're all controlled. And this over here is a traffic light, or sorry, a traffic camera, and if you see one of those, you'll certainly stop. And so the incentive there, or the disincentive, is slow down, I don't want to get a fine. And so what we did was we created a program where we incentivized men in the Western Cape to take their first HIV test. And out of, just the two numbers are 100% of the people that we offered the incentive to, 80% had taken their first time HIV test. Our current project that we're working with is 20% of the Manenberg matriculants get through matric. So we've created a program and we're working with Manenberg in the Western Cape. And we're incentivizing mothers to keep their children in school. Because the idea is people that get a good education can uplift the country. So in closing, the Broccoli Project is creating a program with rewards that matter for positive social behavior for the world's wicked problems. Thank you.